everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Nintendo DS Lite and see how this particular gaming console holds up in 2025. Now, the very first thing I would recommend kind of thinking about is that with the Nintendo DS Lite, this particular gaming console came out many years ago. So this thing isn't necessarily the latest and greatest console anymore. And it's funny because we've now since gotten like the successor, like the great grandmother of this thing, which is the Nintendo Switch 2. So this thing, in a way, was a really big step up coming from its predecessor, which was the original Nintendo DS. And that was a really big, successor coming from the Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Advance SP. Now, the things that are still very good about the Nintendo DS Lite, number one, the design. The design of the DS Lite still looks beautiful. Every time I pick up my DS Lite, I look at the metallic plastic that's around it, I look at the design language, and then I think to myself, wow, Nintendo did a really good job of making the original Nintendo DS to look much better, and they made the DS Lite. The DS Lite was such a beautiful looking console, it makes me think, why did they ever make the original Nintendo DS the way that they did? Also, they kept the same type of design as the original DS inside of the DS Lite, the dual screen technology, you had the touchscreen at the very bottom. These displays were much brighter than the original DS. And it's funny because apparently a lot of people think DS, like Nintendo DS, stands for dual screen. I guess it actually is meant for developer system. So that was in and of itself another interesting thing. Now we kind of know the history of the DS. We already know what it kind of is. I don't have to bore you with that. I want to hit on specifically why it's still a very good console right now. The gaming library of this console. There are just an endless amount of games that you can basically download for your Nintendo DS. So you could theoretically just go through and use basically your Nintendo DS and buy boatloads of games for your console, and there are just an amazing assortment of different games that are currently available. You can easily go through and buy pretty much any type of game that you want from a Nintendo, gaming, title on this particular console. Now keep in mind, it's not going to play the latest Super Mario's, it's not going to play the latest Zelda's, Animal Crossing, anything like that, but there were a lot of games for those titles and for those gaming libraries that came out for this console. There were lots of, new Super Mario. There was one new Super Mario Bros. That came out for this thing, but there were lots of Mario titles that came out. There were several different Nintendo, Zelda games, franchises that came out, and Animal Crossing came out for this title. So many different games across the board. But you also had that Game Boy Advance slot, which allowed you to type into all those Game Boy Advance games that Nintendo also made too. And it was a really cool thing. It's also one of the only systems out there that natively plays Game Boy Advance games via the cartridge. So that was something that was really cool. And like I said, there's a massive amount of games available for this type of console. It's a smaller console as well, so it's fairly easy to go through and travel with this particular gaming console. You can really do, and like I said before, an endless amount of things within this console in and of itself, which again makes it feel and perform that much better when it comes down to it. So it really makes me feel really good about owning a gaming console like this, because there's still a lot of capability behind it. But this thing isn't perfect. There's not really that much online support anymore. So if you're trying to go through and play a lot of Nintendo DS games online, you're not really going to be able to do that. The hardware itself is also aging a little bit. You're going to notice that the gaming console doesn't really feel as good as something like the Nintendo Switch. Even the Switch is built mostly out of plastic. But the build quality of the DS, I'm surprised I never really broke mine in half or anything like that. It's nice that you can fold it in half and travel with it, but keep in mind that it is going to be a little bit of a different type of process when you might be traveling with it or doing anything with it, because it is a little bit cheaply built compared to today's standards. And because of that, there's no more games being made for this type of console anymore. It's a little bit of an older type of styling when it comes down to from that side as well. So what I would say is the Nintendo DS Lite, for the most part, I think it's still an amazing console. I think it's beautiful, and there still is a lot of capability behind it. It's not really a perfect console, and there's definitely issues going on with it, but I do think this is still one of those types of devices and consoles that I would highly recommend people to, buy, and just buy a bunch of games for it, because there's still a lot of power behind it. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, not only so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.